The trap's metal teeth had bitten deep into scaled flesh, and the creature's labored breathing filled the humid air of the canopy. Dr. Nora Hayes crouched on the thick branch, her field scanner forgotten in her pack as she stared at the predator caught 15 feet below her. The thing was massive even for a juvenile, easily the size of an earth tiger, with midnight blue scales that shimmered like oil on water. 6 amber eyes tracked her movements with unsettling intelligence. This was monumentally stupid. Nora knew that. Every survival brief she'd sat through during the transit to Verdant Reach had hammered home one rule: stay away from dusk stalkers. They were the apex predators of this moon, responsible for wiping out 3 colonial settlements in the past 18 months. The creatures hunted in coordinated packs, used ambush tactics that would impress military strategists, and showed absolutely no fear of humans or their weapons. Yet here she was, rappelling down toward one with nothing but a medical kit and a plasma cutter meant for sample collection. The stalker's breathing grew more ragged as she descended. Blood pooled beneath its trapped hind leg, dark against the moss-covered branch. Those 6 eyes never left her, but the creature didn't snarl or snap. It simply watched, head tilted in what almost looked like curiosity that Nora's boots touched down 3 feet from the trap. This close, she could see the cruel design of the thing. Barbed teeth designed to dig deeper with any movement, probably poison too. Illegal as hell, but that didn't stop poachers from scattering them through the jungle. Stalker scales fetched premium prices on black markets across 3 systems. She held up her hands, showing empty palms. The gesture felt ridiculous, like something from a children's hollow about befriending wild animals. The stalker's nostrils flared, scenting her, and a low rumble built in its chest. "Easy," Nora whispered. "I'm going to help you. Try not to eat me, okay?" The rumble continued, but the creature's body language shifted slightly. Nora had spent years studying xenobiology, reading behavioral cues across dozens of species. She wasn't imagining it. The stalker was considering her offer. She activated the plasma cutter, and the stalker's eyes widened at the bright beam. For a moment, Nora thought it would panic, but instead, it went perfectly still. That same eerie intelligence gleamed in its gaze as it seemed to understand what she intended to do. The trap's metal responded to the cutter, glowing orange then white. Nora worked carefully, aware that one wrong move could sever the creature's leg entirely. Sweat dripped down her spine despite the climate suit's cooling system. Her hands remained steady. The final section of metal gave way with a snap. The trap fell open, releasing the mangled leg. The stalker pulled itself free immediately, but it didn't flee. Instead, it sat back on its haunches, favoring the injured limb, and continued to stare at Nora. She pulled out the medical kit. Already knowing this was pushing her luck. "That leg needs treatment, or infection will kill you just as surely as the trap would have." To her amazement, the stalker extended its injured leg toward her. Nora's heart hammered as she approached. Her training screamed warnings, but her instincts told a different story. She'd worked with dangerous earth predators during her doctoral research: wolves, big cats, even a few rescued bears. She recognized the body language of an intelligent creature making a choice to trust. The antibacterial foam hissed as she applied it to the wound. The stalker flinched but didn't pull away. Nora worked quickly, sealing the worst of the damage with synthetic skin and injecting broad-spectrum antibiotics. The creature would heal, though it would carry scars. As she worked, the stalker's gaze drifted to her exposed forearm where her sleeve had ridden up. The geometric tattoo there had been in her family for generations, passed from parent to child for reasons no one quite remembered anymore. Her grandmother had told stories about it being important, about promises made in the old times, but the details had been lost to history. The stalker's reaction was immediate and startling. It leaned forward, bringing its face within inches of her arm. A sound emerged from its throat, not a growl or a purr, but something almost like speech, a series of clicks and warbles that carried distinct patterns. "What is it?" Nora asked, knowing the creature couldn't answer, but unable to stop herself. "Do you recognize this?" The stalker's response was to press its forehead gently against the tattoo. The gesture felt ceremonial, laden with meaning she couldn't begin to interpret. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the moment ended. The creature pulled back, gave her one last long look with all six eyes, and melted into the jungle shadows. Nora stood alone on the branch, heart racing, mind spinning with questions. Her communicator crackled to life. "Hayes, what's your position? We're reading some concerning movement on the scanners." She toggled the device, not taking her eyes off the spot where the stalker had vanished. "I'm Fine. Just finished collecting samples from the canopy layer. Heading back now. Copy that. Make it quick. Command just issued another warning about stalker activity in your sector. 3 sightings in the last hour." Nora glanced down at her tattoo, at the ancient symbols that suddenly seemed far more significant than family tradition. The stalker had recognized them. More than that, it had responded to them with what looked like reverence. She began to climb back to the research station, but the questions followed her through the canopy. How could a creature native to Verdant recognize symbols from Earth? And why did she get the distinct feeling that she just set something in motion that couldn't be stopped? The sensation of being watched had become Nora's constant companion. 3 weeks had passed since the incident with the trap, and the juvenile stalker appeared at every research site she visited. It never approached closer than 30 feet, but it was always there, a shadow in the undergrowth, a pair of amber eyes reflecting her work lights, a dark shape moving parallel to her path through the canopy. Her colleagues had started to notice. "There's something following us," muttered Dr. Owen Park, a botanist who'd arrived on the same transport as Nora. He adjusted his scanner for the 3rd time, trying to get a clear reading through the dense foliage. Same heat signature every time. Stalker juvenile, about 200 kilos. Nora kept her expression neutral as she collected tissue samples from a flowering vine. They're territorial, probably just keeping tabs on intruders. Territorial predators don't follow the same person for 3 weeks without attacking. Owen's voice carried an edge of suspicion. "Unless you've got some explanation you're not sharing?" Before Nora could respond, her communicator erupted with static-laced shouting. The voice belonged to Commander Roth, the station's security chief. "All personnel return to base immediately. We have a situation." The jungle erupted around them, not with sound, but with sudden, oppressive silence. Every creature that had been chirping, buzzing, or calling went quiet at once. Nora's skin prickled with primal warning. "Move," she hissed at Owen, already running. They crashed through the undergrowth, abandoning protocol and stealth for speed. Behind them, Nora heard the distinctive sound of multiple large bodies moving through the canopy. Not one stalker, many. The research station appeared through the trees, a cluster of prefab buildings arranged in a defensive circle, surrounded by sensor fences that were supposed to keep the jungle's dangers at bay. Today, those fences looked pitifully inadequate. 6 adult stalkers circled the perimeter, each one massive and covered in scars that spoke of long lives and countless hunts. They didn't attack the barrier, just paced with clear intent. The message was obvious. The station was surrounded. Nora and Owen sprinted through the main gate as it sealed behind them. Inside, controlled chaos reigned. Researchers shouted questions, security personnel manned defensive positions, and Commander Ross stood at the command center, his face grim. 7th incident this month, he announced to the assembled crowd. "They're testing our defenses, getting bolder." He pulled up a holographic display showing the colony map. Red markers indicated stalker sightings. The entire region was covered in them. "Military command is losing patience. If we can't prove we can coexist with these things, they're authorizing an orbital strike to clear the area." "You can't," Nora blurted out. Every head turned toward her. "They're intelligent. This isn't mindless aggression, it's communication." Roth's expression hardened. "Communication that's killed 17 colonists. I've seen the footage, Hayes. These things are weapons, and they've decided we're the enemy." Nora wanted to argue, but what could she say? That she'd freed one, and now it followed her around like a lost puppy? That she had a feeling, nothing more, that there was something deeper happening here. The meeting dissolved into arguments about defense strategies and evacuation protocols. Nora slipped away, heading for the station's small archive room. If there were answers, they wouldn't be found in weapons systems or security reports. The archive was run by Garrett, an older human who'd been on Verdant Reach since the first colony ships arrived. He looked up from his terminal as Nora entered, unsurprised by her presence. Figured someone would come looking eventually, he said, pulling up files before she even asked. You're not the first to notice something odd about those stalkers. And you're not the first to have that tattoo, either. Nora's hand moved unconsciously to her forearm. What do you know about it? Not much, but enough to be curious. Garrett transferred files to her personal device. That pattern shows up in cave paintings from old Earth, pre-space flight era. Some archaeologists think it represents a pact or covenant of some kind, but the context was lost millennia ago. He pulled up an image that made Nora's breath catch. The cave painting showed human figures standing beside creatures that looked disturbingly similar to dusk stalkers. The humans all bore the same geometric tattoo she carried on her arm. That's impossible, she whispered. These paintings are from Earth. The stalkers are native to Verdant Reach. Are they? Garrett's eyes glinted with the excitement of a man who'd been sitting on a secret for too long. No one's ever done a full genetic workup. We assume they evolved here because they're here. But what if that assumption was wrong? There's more, he continued, typing rapidly. The Thren have stories about this moon. They've been trading in this system for thousands of years, long before humans arrived. According to their oral histories, there used to be another species here, one that lived in harmony with the stalkers. What happened to them? The Thren don't know, just that they disappeared long before human colonies were established. But here's the interesting part. The Thren word for that lost species translates roughly to the marked ones. A sound outside made them both freeze. Through the archive's small window, Nora saw the juvenile stalker sitting at the perimeter fence. It wasn't trying to get in, just sitting there, waiting. Those 6 amber eyes seemed to look directly at her. It's been following you, hasn't it? Garrett asked quietly. Nora nodded, unable to take her eyes off the creature. Ever since I freed it from a trap. It looked at my tattoo and reacted like it recognized something. Maybe it did. Garrett transferred one final file. There's a Thren trading post about 50 kilometers east. The elder there, named Quilix, claims to have more complete records about the marked ones. If you want real answers, that's where you'll find them. Before Nora could respond, an alarm shrieked through the station. She rushed to the window in time to see the juvenile stalker's head snap toward the jungle. A moment later, it bolted into the undergrowth. Her communicator crackled. All hands, we have incoming. Multiple heat signatures, approaching fast from the northwest. This is not a drill. Nora ran for the command center, Garrett close behind. The holographic display showed 15, no, 20 stalkers converging on the station. The largest concentration of the predators anyone had ever recorded. They're attacking, Commander Roth said, his voice deadly calm. Activate all defensive systems. Prepare to evacuate non-essential personnel. But Nora saw something in the patterns that others missed. The stalkers weren't attacking. They were running toward the station, fleeing from something. And on the edge of the scanner range, she saw what they were running from. Human heat signatures, dozens of them, moving with military precision. Commander, she said urgently, those aren't colonial security forces. Who else is in our sector? Roth's face went pale as he pulled up identification protocols. The answer came back within seconds, and it changed everything. Poachers, he breathed, armed to the teeth and heading straight for us. The stalkers weren't attacking the station. They were seeking refuge. The decision Nora made in that moment would have gotten her court-martialed on any official colonial world. She grabbed her field pack, checked that her medical kit was fully stocked, and headed for the main gate. Hayes, what the hell are you doing? Commander Roth's voice boomed across the compound. Opening the gate, she called back, already inputting her override code. They're not attacking us. They need help. That's insane. You'll let them right into the station. No, I'm going out there. The gate began to slide open. Keep everyone inside. Lock it behind me. Trust me on this, Commander. Please. She didn't wait for permission she knew wouldn't come. The moment the gap was wide enough, Nora slipped through into the humid jungle night. Behind her, She heard Roth shouting orders, but the gate remained open just long enough for her to clear it before sealing with a heavy thunk. The juvenile stalker materialized from the shadows immediately. Up close, Nora could see its body language clearly. Ears pinned back, muscles tense, head swiveling toward the approaching threat. Every line of its posture screamed danger. "I know," Nora said softly, approaching with her hands visible. "Show me. Take me to them." The stalker's 6 eyes fixed on her tattoo, and that same ceremonial gesture from weeks ago repeated itself. A gentle press of forehead to marked skin. Then it turned and loped into the jungle, pausing every few meters to ensure she followed. They moved through the undergrowth with purpose. The juvenile led her away from the poacher's trajectory, taking narrow game trails that would be nearly impossible for armed humans to follow. Within 10 minutes, they reached a clearing where the other stalkers had gathered. Nora's breath caught. There weren't 20 of them. There were closer to 40, and nearly half were juveniles even younger than her guide. The adults formed a protective circle around the young ones, and Nora could see fresh wounds on several of them. Plasma burns, projectile injuries, the unmistakable marks of combat with modern weapons. The largest stalker, the alpha she'd seen circling the station earlier, stepped forward. Its scales were covered in old scars, and one of its eyes had been damaged long ago, clouded white with age. This creature had survived decades in a jungle full of dangers. Both natural and human made it approach Nora directly, and she forced herself to stand still despite every instinct screaming at her to run. The alpha's functioning eyes studied her with an intensity that made her feel naked, as if it could see straight through to her intentions. Then it did something that shouldn't have been possible. It extended one massive paw and, with surprising gentleness, touched her tattooed forearm with a single claw. The world exploded into sensation. Nora gasped as images flooded her mind. Not words, not speech, but pure experience. Memories that weren't her own. She saw humans, but not modern colonists. These people wore simple clothes made from natural materials, their skin marked with the same geometric pattern she bore. They moved through a jungle that was familiar yet different, and beside them walked stalkers, not as tamed animals or servants, but as equals. Partners. The memories cascaded faster. She saw human children playing with stalker cubs, both species learning from each other. She saw coordinated hunts, where humans used tools and strategy, while stalkers provided strength and speed. She saw ceremonies where young humans received their tattoos, and young stalkers received corresponding marks painted on their scales. Then came the darker memories. Ships descending from the sky. Humans in armor, different from the marked ones, who didn't recognize the old bonds. Fighting. Fire. The marked ones trying to protect the stalkers, trying to explain, but being overwhelmed by superior numbers and technology. Families torn apart. Survivors scattered. The memory stream intensified, and Nora saw something that made her heart clench. Marked humans being forced onto ships, removed from a moon against their will, while stalkers howled in grief. The vision was so vivid she could feel their anguish, their confusion, their sense of abandonment. Then, finally, waiting. Generations of stalkers waiting for the marked ones to return, keeping the memory of the pact alive even as the galaxy forgot. The connection broke, and Nora staggered backward. The Alpha steadied her with surprising care, supporting her weight until her legs stopped shaking. "You've been waiting," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "All this time, you've been waiting for us to come back." The Alpha made that same series of clicks and warbles the juvenile had used, but this time Nora understood the meaning behind them, even if she couldn't speak the language. Affirmation, recognition, relief that finally, after so long, one of the marked ones had returned. Understanding crashed over her with the weight of responsibility. The stalkers hadn't been attacking human settlements out of aggression. They'd been trying to find the marked ones among the colonists, trying to restore the ancient pact. And when they found only humans who shot first and asked questions never, they'd responded with desperation and grief-fueled rage. "The poachers," Nora said urgently, pulling up her scanner. "How many are coming? How bad is it?" The Alpha turned toward three scarred adults who emerged from the jungle, carrying something that made Nora's blood run cold. Stalker pelts, freshly removed. The creatures had intercepted a poacher camp and recovered the bodies of their dead. "They're hunting you systematically," Nora said, horror and rage mixing in her gut. Roth said there were other attacks. Those weren't random raids. The poachers have been escalating. Her communicator crackled with static. Then Garrett's voice came through. "Hayes, if you're still alive out there, you need to hear this." I pulled satellite data. There's a large ship in low orbit, directly above the poacher signatures. It's not registered with colonial authorities. "Harvesting operation," Nora breathed. "They're not just hunting. They're planning to take as many as possible." The juvenile pressed against her side, and the Alpha moved closer. Around them, the other stalkers gathered, looking to her with an expectation she didn't feel qualified to meet. These creatures had waited generations for the marked ones to return, and here she was. One human with a family tattoo and no idea how to stop armed poachers with a ship in orbit. But as she looked at the juveniles, some of them barely old enough to hunt on their own, determination hardened in her chest. The pack had been broken through ignorance and greed. Maybe, just maybe, she could help restore it. "I need to get to that Thrin trading post," she said to the Alpha, knowing it couldn't understand her words but hoping the intent would come through. "There's someone there who knows the history, who might have answers about how this all started. Can you take me?" The Alpha studied her for a long moment, then turned and called out with a sound that made the jungle itself seem to hold its breath. From the tree-line, an even larger stalker emerged. This one was ancient, its scales faded almost to gray, moving with the careful deliberation of extreme age. But its eyes were sharp, all six of them focused entirely on Nora. The elder stalker approached, and this time Nora reached out first, offering her tattooed arm. The creature touched it gently, and though there was no memory transfer this time, she felt a wave of approval wash over her. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's go find some answers." The Thrin trading post squatted in a natural clearing like a metallic mushroom, its curved walls reflecting the bioluminescent plants that lined the jungle floor. Nora had made the 50-kilometer journey in under 4 hours, riding on the back of the elder stalker with her juvenile companion, keeping pace alongside. The experience had been terrifying, exhilarating, and strangely natural all at once. Quilix, the Thrin elder, stood waiting at the post's entrance, as if he'd been expecting her. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed purple-black in the twilight, and his compound eyes tracked the stalkers with interest but not fear. "Ah," he clicked in perfect standard. "One of the marked ones finally arrives." I wondered how long it would take. Nora slid down from the elder stalker's back, her legs trembling from the extended ride. "You knew? You knew there were marked humans on this moon, and you said nothing." I said nothing because no one asked the right questions. Quilix's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Your Commander Roth inquired about stalker behavior patterns, territorial ranges, and hunting efficiency. He never asked about the history of this place." Almost harelido. The elder stalker made a low sound, and Quilix responded with a series of clicks that the creature seemed to understand. They were communicating, Nora realized with shock. The Thrin could actually speak with the stalkers. "You can talk to them," she said. "Ow!" The Thrin have traded in this system for 3,000 years. "We learned their language long ago, when the first marked ones live here." Quilix gestured toward the post. "Kulme, the poachers will not find you here. We maintain neutrality, and even human criminals respect Thrin trading sovereignty." Inside, the post was a fascinating blend of technology and organic design. Holographic displays showed trade goods from 100 worlds, but they were mounted on walls made from living wood that had been coaxed into shape rather than cut. Quilix led her to a back room where ancient data crystals were stored in climate-controlled cases. This moon was never meant to be called Verdant Reach. The Thrin began, selecting several crystals and loading them into a reader. Its original name, in the language of the marked ones who lived here, translated to the Bond Place. It was settled during Earth's early expansion period, long before the modern colonial charter system existed. Holographic images flickered to life, showing humans in simple clothing working alongside stalkers. The humans bore elaborate tattoos identical to Nora's, though theirs covered much more of their bodies. The first settlers found the stalkers already here, intelligent and social. Both species discovered something remarkable, a biological compatibility that shouldn't have existed. The marked ones and the stalkers could form a type of bond, a mental link that allowed them to share thoughts, emotions, and experiences. The vision, Nora breathed. When the alpha touched my tattoo, I saw memories. They're memories, not just saw. You experienced them as if they were your own. Quilix manipulated the display, showing diagrams of human and stalker neurology. The bond is facilitated by specific genetic markers present in both species. Humans with these markers carry them as recessive traits, often expressed visually as an instinct to mark themselves with particular geometric patterns. The stalkers recognize these patterns because their ancestors learned to associate them with bondmates. But why? Nora asked. How could two species from the same planet develop this kind of compatibility? That is the question, isn't it? Quilix's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The most logical answer is that they didn't develop it. It was engineered. The hologram shifted, showing genetic code far too complex for Nora to fully understand. But the implications were clear. Someone had deliberately created the capability for bonding between humans and stalkers. Who? What? Unknown. The records from that era are fragmentary at best. What we do know is that the bond place thrived for nearly 2 centuries. The marked ones and stalkers created a unique civilization here, one based on partnership between species. They developed new technologies, new philosophies. They were, by all accounts, happy. Then what happened? Quilix's expression darkened as much as a Thren's face could. The expansion wars. You know your history. Earth's colonial government fractured, rival factions fought for control of the outer systems, and in the chaos, many settlements were lost or abandoned. The bond place became strategically important due to its location near several major shipping lanes. The hologram showed military ships descending on the moon. A faction called the United Colonial Fleet arrived, claiming authority over the settlement. They didn't recognize the marked one's way of life. To them, the stalkers were dangerous predators that needed to be controlled or eliminated, and the marked ones who defended them were traitors who'd gone native. Nora's stomach twisted as she watched the holographic battle unfold. The marked ones and stalkers had fought together, but they'd been overwhelmed by superior firepower and numbers. The marked ones were forcibly relocated to other colonies, separated from their stalker bondmates. The trauma of that separation killed many on both sides. The surviving stalkers were left here, told that their human partners had abandoned them. The surviving marked ones were scattered across a dozen worlds, their children discouraged from maintaining the old traditions. But some kept the tattoos, Nora said quietly. My family never forgot, even if we didn't know why. Precisely. The genetic markers persisted, passed down through generations. And here on the bond place, the stalkers remembered too. They kept their language, their social structures, their hope that someday the marked ones would return. Quilix loaded another crystal, and this one showed recent events. Nora saw the first modern human colony ships arriving at Verdant Reach 50 years ago, saw the stalkers approaching with cautious hope, and saw the humans responding with weapons fire. They thought you had come back, Quilix said softly. Instead, they found humans who had no knowledge of the bond, who saw them as animals to be feared or resources to be exploited. The attacks, Norris said, understanding dawning. They weren't trying to kill colonists. They were trying to find marked ones, trying to see if anyone recognized them. Yes, and when they found only fear and violence, they responded in kind. Not out of mindless aggression, but grief and desperate rage. Can you imagine waiting 200 years for your loved ones to return, only to have their descendants try to exterminate you? Nora looked out the window to where the elder stalker waited patiently. The juvenile had curled up beside it, both of them watching the post with protective vigilance. The poachers, she said, they're making it worse. They're hunting the stalkers for their scales, and the stalkers think it's another attempt at genocide. And they're not entirely wrong. Quilix pulled up new data showing orbital trajectories and ship manifests. The poacher vessel in orbit is flagged as a commercial harvesting operation, but their permits are falsified. They're working for a black market syndicate that specializes in xenobiological materials. They've been watching Verdant reach for months, waiting for stalker populations to concentrate before making their move. How many ships? Just one, but it's a carrier class, capable of deploying assault teams and holding significant cargo. If they succeed in their harvest operation, they could capture or kill hundreds of stalkers in a single night. Nora's hands clenched into fists. The stalkers had already suffered genocide once in their history. They couldn't be allowed to experience it again. "I need to stop this," she said. "But I'm one person with a tattoo and no authority. How do I convince Colonial Command or military oversight or anyone with actual power that these creatures are sentient beings with legal rights?" Quilix's mandibles spread in what Nora had learned was a threatened smile. "You don't convince them with words. You show them the bond. You prove that humans and stalkers can work together as they once did." "How?" "I can share memories with them, but I don't know how to truly bond. The elder waits outside for a reason." Quilix moved toward the door. "It has lived long enough to remember the last of the marked ones before they were taken away. If any stalker knows how to properly form a bond, it would be that one." Nora followed him outside, her heart pounding. The elder stalker rose as she approached, and this time when it looked at her, she saw something different in its gaze: anticipation. "What do I do?" she asked. Quilix translated her question into clicks and warbles. The elder responded, then the Thren translated back. "You must be willing to share not just memories, but yourself. The bond requires trust absolute. You will know its thoughts as it knows yours. You will feel its pain and joy as your own. There is no privacy, no secrets, no lies. Are you prepared for that?" Nora thought about her life, her research, her dreams, her fears, her loneliness. She thought about the stalkers watching her with hope in their eyes and the poachers preparing to slaughter them. She thought about an ancient pact broken by violence and ignorance. "Yes," she said, "I'm ready." The elder stalker approached and pressed its forehead to her tattooed arm, just as the alpha had done. But this time, instead of pulling away after a moment, it maintained contact. The world began to blur at the edges. Nora closed her eyes and opened her mind. The sensation was like diving into an ocean. She felt the elder's consciousness brush against hers, ancient and vast, and filled with memories of a world that no longer existed. She felt its grief for lost companions, its love for the pact that surrounded it now, its weary hope that maybe, finally, the marked ones had truly returned, and she felt something click into place, like a lock finally finding its key. The bond snapped tight between them, and suddenly Nora wasn't just human anymore. She was also stalker, seeing through 6 eyes, feeling the jungle through senses that could detect heat and electrical fields, understanding a language that had no words but only meaning. The elders sent a wave of welcome, of joy, of relief so profound it brought tears to Nora's eyes. Through their link, she felt the presence of other stalkers in the distance. The alpha, the juveniles, dozens of individuals who suddenly felt as real to her as her own heartbeat. And they could all feel her too. When Nora opened her eyes, she was bonded, and she knew exactly what had to be done next. The emergency council meeting was not going well. Commander Roth stood at the head of the table in the station's command center, his face drawn with stress and lack of sleep. Around him sat the research staff, security personnel, and via holographic projection, several officials from colonial administration. "The situation has deteriorated beyond our capacity to manage," Roth was saying. "We have armed poachers operating illegally in our sector, aggressive wildlife concentrating around our position, and one of our research staff has gone missing in the jungle for over 16 hours. I'm formally requesting military intervention and temporary evacuation of non-essential personnel." "Denied," replied Administrator Chun from her office 3 systems away. "Military resources are already stretched thin dealing with the Kepler situation. You have defensive capabilities. Use them. Against what? Roth's frustration was evident. The stalkers aren't attacking, but they've surrounded the station. The poachers are preparing for a major operation that will violate every treaty governing protected xenobiological species, and we have neither the authority nor the firepower to stop them. Meanwhile, Dr. Hayes is either dead or collaborating with unknown. I'm neither dead nor collaborating. Nora's voice crackled through the communication system. And I'm asking permission to return to the station with a full pack of dusk stalkers. Please don't shoot us. Every head in the room turned toward the external monitors. What they saw made several people stand up in shock. Nora emerged from the treeline, riding on the back of the massive elder stalker, with the juvenile keeping pace beside her. Behind them came the alpha and the rest of the pack, 40 stalkers moving in coordinated formation. Hayes, what the hell have you done? Roth demanded. Restored a 200-year-old treaty, Nora replied calmly. Through the bond, she felt the elder's amusement at the human's panic. And I need you to open the gate. We have approximately 2 hours before the poachers launch their assault, and we need to coordinate a defense. You want me to let 40 apex predators into this station? I want you to recognize that these people are your allies. Nora emphasized the word deliberately. They're intelligent, they're organized, and they're the original inhabitants of this moon. We're the invaders who forgot our own history. Through the monitor, everyone in the command center could see Nora's tattooed arm resting comfortably on the Elder Stalker scales. The creature's body language showed no aggression, only calm purpose. She's bonded with it, breathed Owen Park, who'd spent enough time studying animal behavior to recognize what he was seeing. That's not training or taming. That's genuine partnership. Administrator Chen leaned forward in her holographic projection. Dr. Hayes, are you claiming that these creatures are sentient? I'm stating it as fact, Administrator. They have language, culture, and legal claim to this world that predates our colonial charter by 2 centuries. They've been trying to communicate that to us since we arrived, but we kept shooting first. Nora dismounted and approached the gate, feeling the elder's steady presence in her mind like a second heartbeat. The Thren have records. The original name of this moon was the Bond Place. It was settled by humans who formed partnerships with the Stalkers, creating a unique civilization based on mutual cooperation. That settlement was destroyed during the expansion wars, but both species survived. The Stalkers have been waiting for us to remember ever since. This is insane, Roth muttered, but Nora could see the doubt in his eyes. She was too calm, too confident, and the Stalkers behind her were too obviously organized to be simple animals. I can prove it, Nora said, but not if the poachers succeed in their harvest operation. They're planning to hit the station and the Stalker concentrations simultaneously, capturing as many as they can for the black market. We can either fight them separately and likely fail, or we work together as our ancestors did. Administrator Chan was silent for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. Commander Roth, open the gate. Dr. Hayes, you have 1 hour to make your case. If I'm not convinced, I'm authorizing the military response you've been requesting and quarantining the entire region. The gate began to slide open. Nora felt the elder's satisfaction through their bond, mixed with wariness. The Stalkers had tried approaching human settlements peacefully before, only to be met with violence. It's different this time, Nora said quietly in response to the unspoken concern. Through the bond, the elder understood her meaning, if not her words. The pack entered the station slowly, deliberately non-threatening in their movements. Researchers pressed against the walls, staring in awe and fear as creatures that had terrorized their nightmares walked past them with intelligence gleaming in their eyes. Nora led them to the command center, where Garrett had prepared a presentation combining the Thren historical records with modern genetic analysis. The elder stalker settled beside Nora's chair, and the juvenile lay at her feet. The rest of the pack arranged themselves around the room with the precise positioning of a trained guard unit. Ladies and gentlemen, Nora began, let me tell you about the biggest archaeological and anthropological discovery of the century. And then let's talk about how we're going to survive the next 2 hours. The presentation took 40 minutes. Nora showed them everything. The cave paintings, the genetic markers, the historical records of the Bond Place settlement, and the tragedy of its destruction. She demonstrated her bond with the Elder Stalker, allowing others to see how the creature responded to her thoughts and intentions. Owen Park volunteered to be the first skeptic. If they're intelligent, why haven't they tried to communicate in ways we'd recognize? Why the attacks on settlements? Through the bond, Nora felt the Elder's response and translated, they did try. They approached with peaceful intentions every time a new human settlement appeared, hoping to find marked ones who would recognize them. Instead, they were met with weapons fire. The attacks you're calling aggression were desperate attempts to force communication, to make humans acknowledge them as something more than animals. The juveniles, Nora continued, gesturing to the young stalkers in the room. They're being taught human standard language right now, learning it from me through the bond. In another generation, they'll be able to speak directly with humans who don't carry the genetic markers for bonding. But we never gave them that chance. Administrator Chun had been silent throughout the presentation, but now she leaned forward. Assuming everything you're saying is true, it changes the legal status of this entire colony. If the stalkers have prior claim and sentience, the colonial charter is invalid. This would become a contact situation requiring diplomatic protocols, which is exactly what it should be, Nora replied. But first, we have to survive. The poacher ship is preparing to deploy assault teams. They have enough firepower to overwhelm both the station's defenses and the stalker packs separately. Together, we have a chance. Roth had been studying tactical displays while Nora presented. Now he spoke up. If we coordinate properly, we could create a defensive perimeter using the stalkers' natural advantages in the jungle combined with our technology. They know the terrain. They can move through the canopy faster than any human, and their sensory capabilities are superior. They also understand tactics, Nora added. Show them. The Alpha approached the tactical display. For a moment, everyone held their breath, waiting to see if the creature would simply stare at the holographic map in confusion. Instead, it studied the terrain, then used one careful claw to indicate positions where stalkers could set up ambush points, retreat paths that would funnel the poachers into kill zones, and coordination points where human technology could support stalker strikes. The room went completely silent. Holy hell, Roth whispered. That's a better tactical plan than what I came up with. Through the bond, Nora felt the Alpha's grim satisfaction. The stalkers had learned to fight against humans through bitter necessity. Now, for the first time in 2 centuries, they would fight beside humans instead. We have 90 minutes, Nora said. Let's get to work. The next hour passed in controlled chaos. Human security teams coordinated with stalker scouts, sharing intelligence about poacher positions and movements. Owen Park worked with 3 juveniles to set up sensor networks that would give both species advance warning of the assault. Garrett translated Thren trade agreements that could be invoked to get legal support from neutral parties. And Nora, bonded to the Elder, served as the bridge between 2 species learning to trust each other again. Through the bond, she felt the Elder's memories of the last time marked ones and stalkers fought together centuries ago. The pain of that final battle still resonated, but beneath it was hope. Hope that this time, the bond wouldn't be broken. Nora's communicator chimed with a priority alert. She pulled it up and felt her blood run cold. They're coming, she announced. Multiple dropships launching from the poacher vessel. ETA, 15 minutes. The Elder Stalker rose and called out with a sound that vibrated through the station's walls. Every stalker in the building answered, and through the bond, Nora felt the pack's unity crystallize into purpose. Commander Roth activated the station's defenses and opened a channel to all personnel. This is it, people. Defensive positions. And remember, the stalkers are friendlies. Don't shoot our allies. Nora mounted the Elder Stalker again, feeling their minds merge more deeply as adrenaline sharpened the bond. Around them, humans and stalkers moved into coordinated positions, preparing to defend their home together. The poachers were about to learn a very hard lesson about the price of breaking ancient pacts. The first dropship came in low over the canopy, its engines screaming as it approached the research station. On the ground, Nora felt the forest itself holding its breath. Through her bond with the Elder Stalker, she sensed the entire pack's readiness. Not the mindless aggression of animals, but the cold calculation of intelligent beings preparing to defend their home. "Wait for it," Commander Roth's voice crackled through Nora's earpiece. "Let them commit." The dropship touched down in the clearing north of the station. Its doors blasted open, and armed figures in tactical gear poured out, weapons raised. 20 poachers, moving in practice formation, advancing toward the research station with the confidence of people who'd done this before. They made it 15 feet before the jungle came alive. Stalkers dropped from the canopy on all sides, moving with precision that made human special forces look clumsy. The poachers' weapons barely tracked their targets before the assault was over. No one died, Nora noted with relief, but every poacher was disarmed and pinned by creatures who understood exactly how much force to use without killing. Through the bond, she felt the Alpha's grim satisfaction. The message had been sent. Surprise and superior numbers meant nothing against an enemy that knew every shadow and branch. "Second dropship incoming," Garrett called from the command center. "They're adjusting tactics. This one's staying airborne." Nora urged the Elder forward, and they moved to a position with clear sight lines to the sky. The dropship hovered above the trees, and its side door opened. She saw heavy weapons being positioned, crew-serve guns that could chew through foliage and flesh alike. "They're going to suppress the canopy," she said through the communications network. "Clear out any stalkers they can't see to disable them from range. Not if we blind them first." Owen Park's voice came through, surprisingly calm. "I've got sensor scramblers set up at coordinates Delta 4. If we activate them now, their targeting systems will read ghost signatures across the entire sector." "Do it," Roth ordered. The electromagnetic pulse swept outward, invisible but devastatingly effective. The hovering dropship wobbled as its systems went haywire. Warning lights flashed inside the cargo bay, and the crew scrambled to compensate for sensors that suddenly showed hostile targets in every direction. Through the bond, Nora directed the Elder and 4 other adult stalkers to circle wide, moving through the jungle to approach the dropship from its blind spots. She felt their acknowledgement, their trust in her guidance, and the thrill of hunting together after so long alone. The Elder could have taken a position of safety, directing from a distance, but Nora felt its determination through their link. This creature had lived through the fall of the Bond Place, had watched its human companions torn away, had spent 2 centuries protecting a pack that slowly forgot what they were waiting for. It would not sit back now that the marked ones had finally returned. The stalkers reached the dropship's position just as its crew managed to override the sensor scrambling. But by then, it was too late. The creatures leaped from tree to tree with impossible grace, and when they struck, it was with precision. Not to kill, Nora had made that clear through the bond, but to disable, claws sheared through engine mounts. Teeth punctured hydraulic lines. The dropship listed dangerously, its pilot fighting for control as systems failed across the board. Within 30 seconds, the craft was making an emergency landing in a clearing 2 kilometers from the station. Its crew alive, but thoroughly defeated. "Third dropship is turning back," reported a security officer monitoring the skies. "They're retreating to orbit." "No," Nora said, feeling a spike of alarm through the bond. The Elder had sensed something wrong. "They're not retreating. They're regrouping for a bigger strike." Her instinct proved correct moments later when Garrett's scanners lit up with new contacts. Multiple atmospheric missiles inbound. They're not trying to capture anymore. They're going straight to scorched Earth. The command center erupted in controlled panic. The station's defenses could handle small arms and light vehicles, but orbital bombardment was another matter entirely. "Evacuation protocols," Roth started to say, but Nora cut him off. "Wait, the stalkers have an idea." Through the bond, the Elder was sharing a memory with her. Ancient techniques used by the marked ones and stalkers working together, ways to use the jungle itself as a weapon. Verdant Reach wasn't just any forest. The plant life here had evolved unique properties, including several species that could generate powerful electromagnetic fields when stressed. "The shimmer trees," Owen said, catching on immediately. "If we could trigger a mass response, create an EM field strong enough. It would fry the missile's guidance systems, Garrett finished. But how do we coordinate that across a wide enough area? Nora smiled, feeling the elders equivalent through their bond. We don't. The pact does. She reached out through the link, feeling her way across the web of consciousness that connected her to the elder to the alpha to every adult stalker in the pack. Through them, she could sense the juveniles, and through the juveniles, the entire extended family group that made up the local stalker population. Dozens of minds touched hers, curious and willing. She showed them what was needed. Stalkers positioned at specific shimmer trees throughout the sector, using their bioelectric fields to trigger the plant's defensive response in perfect synchronization. The acknowledgement came back like a chorus. The stalkers understood. More than that, they were eager to demonstrate what centuries of living in this jungle had taught them. 30 seconds before the missiles entered effective range, Nora gave the signal through the bond. All across the sector, stalkers touched shimmer trees with deliberate intent, and the forest responded. The electromagnetic burst was visible even to human eyes, a ripple of blue-white light that washed across the canopy. The missile's guidance systems died instantly, and the weapons tumbled out of control, detonating harmlessly in the upper atmosphere. In orbit, the poacher ship's crew must have realized what they were dealing with. Nora watched the tactical display as the vessel began powering up its main drives, preparing to flee the system entirely. They're running, Roth said with satisfaction. We did it. But Nora felt a different emotion through the bond, the elder's weary resignation. This was just one ship. There will be others. As long as humans see stalkers as resources instead of people, this will happen again. Then we change how humans see them, Administrator Chen said. The holographic projection had remained active throughout the battle, and now the administrator's expression was determined. Dr. Hayes, I'm authorizing a full diplomatic contact protocol for Verdant Reach. This colony is hereby suspended pending renegotiation of settlement rights with the native population. You're shutting us down? Roth asked in disbelief. I'm recognizing that we built an illegal settlement on an inhabited world. The stalkers were here first, they're sentient, and they have legal standing under the Protected Sentient Species Act. What happens next is up to them. Through the bond, Nora felt the elder considering this. Then, slowly, the ancient stalker rose and approached the holographic projector. It studied Administrator Chun for a long moment before making a series of deliberate clicks and warbles. It says, Nora translated, feeling the meaning flow through their link, that the stalkers don't want humans to leave. They want what was taken from them 2 centuries ago. The bond, the partnership, the promise that we would walk together. They're willing to share this world, but only with marked ones who understand what that means. Chen nodded slowly. Then we'll need to identify humans who carry the genetic markers. And we'll need to establish protocols for bonding, for joint governance, for building a society that respects both species equally. The Thren can help, Garrett added. They've maintained records of the original settlement. We can use that as a template. Over the next hours, the framework began to take shape. Nora worked with the Elder Stalker and the Alpha, translating between species as they hammered out the details of a new treaty. Humans with the genetic markers would be invited to return to Verdant Reach to form bonds and establish the first true mixed colony since the Bond Place fell. Owen Park volunteered immediately, as did several other researchers. Genetic testing revealed that nearly 15% of the station's population carried the markers, though most had never known it. It'll take years to get this right, Roth said, watching humans and stalkers working side by side to repair the damage from the battle, building trust after 2 centuries of conflict. Longer than that, Nora agreed. Through the bond, she felt the elder's patience. The stalkers had waited this long. They could wait longer, as long as the promise was real this time. 3 weeks later, Nora stood at the edge of the first official pack colony, watching the sun set over Verdant Reach. The juvenile stalker, her first friend on this moon, sat beside her. Through the bond with the elder, she could feel the entire pack spread across the territory, at peace for the first time in living memory. Other marked humans had begun arriving, transported from colonies across 3 systems. Each one experienced the same wonder Nora had felt when they formed their first bond. Each one discovered that the tattoos their families had maintained for generations weren't just tradition, but a promise encoded in their very DNA. We who walked with teeth and claws shall never walk alone. Nora had found the phrase carved in ancient stone in the ruins, and now she understood its full meaning. Humanity had the remarkable ability to form connections across impossible divides, to see people where others saw only animals or enemies. That gift had been given to her ancestors, encoded in their genes, and preserved through centuries of forgetting. The elder stalker joined her at the cliff's edge, and through their bond, she felt its contentment mixed with cautious hope. The path ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges as 2 species learned to live together again. But they would face it as they should have always faced it. United, the juvenile made a questioning sound, and Nora reached down to scratch behind its ear. Yes, she said, knowing it would feel her meaning through the bond they'd begun forming. We're home now, all of us. In the jungle behind them, human voices called out to stalker companions. Technology and ancient partnership merged into something new, something that honored both the past and the future. The bond place had fallen once, but on Verdant Reach, it would rise again. This time, nothing would break the pact.